It's great to have you with us for another Bible talk. I'm Charlotte and I will be sharing with you today. We're going to continue the theme of forgiveness that David started last week, and he talked about the prodigal son, the story that Jesus tells in the Bible and how that reflects our relationship with God. So if you want to check that out before we go any further, feel free to go and watch that again, or if you've not watched it before, you can watch it now. Basically, a quick recap: the prodigal son is a story about a son who wants his inheritance early, so his father gives it to him, and the son goes away, has a great life partying and all this sort of thing, but ends up kind of running out of money, ending up in a bit of a rubbish situation, and realises, I think I need to go home because I can't continue to live like this. And when he returns home, father's there with open arms, so happy and excited to see his son return home. They have a party. And that story, that was a quick recap, reflects our relationship with God and how he welcomes us back when we've walked away or we don't know him, that as soon as we come back home to him, we have that relationship with him. He's so pleased, no matter what we've done, whether we've wasted the inheritance or made bad choices, that he's there for us and seeks that relationship with us and is so happy to have us back home. So that's a bit about our relationship with God and his forgiveness to us and acceptance, and we're always free to return to him and continue to seek that relationship with him. But in this video today, we are going to look at how we forgive others, which is always easier said than done. It's a big topic. It can be very personal for many of us, forgiving other people. But we're going to have a little sort of overview of that, what the Bible and what Jesus says about that today. So forgiveness is at the heart of Jesus. When we look through the Bible and we see Jesus, he forgives many people, whether they're known to him or whether they're strangers. So we have instances like when he forgives a man who's paralysed, who then miraculously can walk afterwards. We see another instance where he forgives a woman who is kind of very low in society, no one wants to associate with her. He forgives her. He has an encounter with her and forgives her. And then we also see it with his close friends as well. There's particularly one close friend of Jesus that we read about in the Bible called Peter, and he makes a lot of mistakes even though he's one of Jesus' closest friends. He spends a few years with Jesus, builds a relationship with him, and Jesus teaches him a way of life, a Christian way of life. Peter makes some mistakes along the way, but despite that, Jesus still forgives. So that is something that we're going to focus on today. So before we kind of get into the main chunk of their relationship, just going to share with you a bit of background. When Jesus and Peter first met, Peter was a fisherman, so would go out fishing for money. That was his business. But Jesus one day sort of goes to where they're fishing and calls him out, and Peter sees Jesus, recognises something in him, even though he was a stranger, and decides to follow him, to go and learn from him, to have a relationship with Jesus and learn about his way of life. But along the way, over a few years, Peter argues with the close friends that Jesus has around him, what they call the disciples, so those that would have a relationship with Jesus, but not just his friends, but would also learn from him and be like, see him as a bit of a teacher and want to learn. So they argue. Peter gets involved in that and whatnot, some arguments. Peter tries to keep children away from Jesus when he's teaching, even though Jesus welcomes children and wants them to be as part of the teaching too. Peter's like, no, we haven't got time for children. And he also gets Jesus into a bit of a pickle with some tax collectors as well. So we've got a few instances there where Peter's kind of in it and has got Jesus into a bit of a picky situation. And I'm sure Peter did lots of great things too, but there are just a few little examples of how Peter wasn't always perfect. But Jesus every time teaches Peter and and the disciples and those around him and says, look, that wasn't the way to handle it, but I'm going to tell you this story that demonstrates a situation similar. But yeah, so it's all going to be about forgiveness today and how we can forgive others. Yes, what did Jesus say about forgiveness? So the bit of the relationship I particularly want to focus on today is the process of when Jesus kind of got arrested and died on the cross, rose again, and how the relationship between Peter and Jesus developed through that time. So Jesus gathered his friends, Peter was among them, and sort of shared about the next little while, what the process of, what's going to happen when he dies and, what's going to happen to him. And obviously, I would imagine the disciples were a bit scared and like, oh, how, like, how is this going to happen? And at one point, Jesus says to them, someone's going to betray me, and someone's going to sort of deny me 3 times so they don't know me, which causes a bit of a rustling among the friends because they can't believe it. And Peter says, I'll go to prison with you. If you go, I'll go. I'm, sort of saying, I'm so committed to you, Jesus, in this relationship that I'm in this with you, this situation, I'm in it with you. So after they've eaten, they go, Jesus takes a few of them to a garden area to pray. And he says to his friends, will you sit here and pray? I'm just going to go off and pray on my own for a little bit. But you stay here and, stay awake and pray. So Jesus goes away, he comes back to see his friends, and they've all fallen asleep. And he wakes Peter and he's like, why have you fallen asleep? I asked you to stay up and pray. So Jesus goes off again and prays again, and Peter falls asleep, and the rest of the friends that are with them fall asleep again. And Jesus comes back and says, why have you fallen asleep? And tries to wake them up and sort of try and figure out why they've not sort of supported him and asked what he's asked of them. And as this is going on, a group come up to them who's made up of some soldiers and some people from the town that they're in, and also some Jewish leaders who all want to get rid of Jesus and don't want him around because they see him as a threat. And during this, Jesus is like, it's okay, I'll go. Well, he had explained that this was going to happen. He knew this was going to happen. And so he's like, okay, I'll go. But what happens is Peter cuts off someone's ear. Now, I don't think that's what Jesus would have wanted. When we read about him, he doesn't advocate fighting and that sort of thing and violence. He wants relationship and peace, and doesn't want it to end up this way. He just wants to go with them. And then in the end, Jesus will actually heal this guy's ear, which is all good. Now, during the meal previously, I shared with you that Jesus said that someone was going to deny that they knew Jesus 3 times before the cock crows, which I assume was the morning. And we get to this point now where Jesus has been taken away. It's been sort of taken to different leaders of the place, and they want to get rid of Jesus, and they're just trying to figure out how they can do that within the justice system that was there at the time. And Peter kind of follows what's going on. He stays around the area to see what's happening. And people sort of start to recognise Peter. They go, oh, aren't you a friend of Jesus? And he's like, no, I don't know Jesus. And then a second person asks, aren't you you're one of them, aren't you? You follow Jesus. And Peter's like, no, it's not me. I don't know. That's not me. I don't know who you're talking about. And it happens a third time. Someone says, you're Jesus, don't you? And Peter goes, no, I don't. I don't know who he is. And then the cock crows. And Peter realises that he has done exactly what Jesus said was going to happen, that he known him 3 times. Now at this point, I imagine Peter not feeling too great. He's said to Jesus, I'll follow you, I'm so committed to you, I'll go to prison with you. And then it's in this situation now, in this present moment, where he's not done that. He's denied knowing Jesus. And I don't know about you, but that would make me feel not, like I'd let them down, that I'd not done what I said, not stay true to my word. So thankfully, Jesus does die, but he rises again, so that we can be forgiven. He takes all the hurt and pain that we face and that we've done to others, and everything that's wrong with the world, and takes it on himself so that we can have a relationship with God. And he raises from the dead again. He comes back to life, and Peter goes to Jesus' tomb, sees this, is I would imagine very happy that Jesus is alive, and his body is not there. And over a little bit of time after Jesus come back to life, he goes to the disciples, goes to his friends, close friends, and appears to them and says, look, I'm here, I'm back alive, I'm resurrected. And in one of the instances, Peter and his friends are out fishing, and Jesus is on the shore cooking them breakfast. It's bread and fish, and sort of shouts to them, have you caught anything? And Peter and the rest of him, the close friends, saying, no, we haven't. And one of them realises that it's Jesus. And this is really interesting because that was almost how Jesus and Peter's relationship started. He called out to him from the shore and asked him to come. And in this instance as well, Peter jumps out of the boat, sort of leaves everyone else behind, and runs to shore and meets Jesus, and the others follow shortly after. And Jesus cooks some breakfast, that I would imagine having a good chat. They thought someone was going to die and they're here again, so making the most of them, having breakfast together. And Jesus talks to Peter, and he says to him, "Peter, do you love me?" And he says, yeah, of course I do. And Jesus asks again, "Peter, do you love me?" And it's like, "Yes, of course I do. Like, what are you on about?" And then he asks the third time. Jesus asks Peter a third time, "Do you love me?" And he's like, "Yeah, of course I do. Can you not see that?" And I think that's a really interesting moment that Jesus has gone to Peter and sort of said, "But you love me," almost like, "You've done this, you've betrayed me, and I can see that you're hurt by that, but do you love me?" And he's like, "Yes." And I think that's such a lovely, beautiful example of how Jesus is just seeking the relationship. And there's obviously hurt there, things haven't gone the way he wanted. Peter's sort of not supported him all the way like he promised he would. And Jesus is just trying to seek a relationship, just as Peter denied him 3 times. Jesus given an opportunity to say, "Yeah, but I'm in again. I'm here. I'm ready." And I was reflecting on this, sort of planning my talk today, and I think that is something that we can definitely take on board in terms of our relationship with other people. Other people hurt us, we hurt other people, not intentionally. Relationships are sometimes really tricky, and people are sometimes a bit tricky trying to have a relationship with them. But I think that's something that we can really hold on to, is that Jesus showed us, not just with Peter, but in other examples that I'll come to in a minute, of how we can do relationships and how we can forgive people. That what's most important is seeking a relationship, is seeking to rectify the mistakes and talk through things, and not just ignore them and let them fester inside and go over the memories, but actually doing something about it and seeking that relationship. Jesus talks to us about how we can do this, how we can seek those relationships. And he says, at one point, you don't forgive 7 times, you forgive 77 or 70 times 7, depending on the translation that you read. But that's all about forgiveness again and again and again, because he doesn't sort of downplay unforgiveness. He knows that it's a hard thing to do and it takes time. And I think that shows that by him saying no 77 times or 70 times 7, that's how important it is to seek that relationship, to continually forgive, which is not always easy and takes time. Another instance that Jesus talks to us about is confrontation, which I'm sure, none of us see confrontation as easy. It's hard, it's tricky. You don't want to hurt people, you don't want to get hurt within that. But he says, look, you need to do that. You need to go to someone and say, "You may not mean to do this, but I'm hurt by what you said to me. I'm hurt about your actions or the way this relationship's going. Can we please try and sort it out? And I want to understand you, and for me to be able to share my view of things and how I'm feeling." And he talks to his disciples about that as well. And he says, look, it's almost all about seeking that relationship with other people. You go to them. If that doesn't work, try and get someone else to be a bit of a mediator, to try and help you resolve it. If that doesn't work, take it to a wider group of people and try and do all you can to save this relationship. If you're hurt, let them know, tell them, which is very, very, very brave and is not easy by any means. So I hope that's given you a lot to think about today. Jesus and God are all about relationship, and when we sort of look at the relationship we can have with God, that also applies to the relationship that we can have with other people. Jesus offers a different way of living, contrary to what culture might say, well, if someone's hurt you, you need to either get your own back, or it's okay to go over the memories and fester and almost poison ourselves with unforgiveness and resent towards someone. But Jesus offers a different way. He is, not saying it's easy, it takes time and working through, but he sort of shows us and demonstrates how we can always seek that relationship, because we're made for relationships, we're relational people, and God's relational, Jesus is relational. So I don't know where you're at today with your faith journey, with exploring God, and where you're at sat watching this video, but I think we can learn from that. Whether we believe in Jesus or not, we can sort of learn from him still, even today. You know, Peter messed up, he made mistakes, many mistakes, but Jesus still, you know, seeked the relationship with him. And I think from what we read in the Bible, it got stronger by working things through and saying to someone, I want this relationship to work, please can we do this together, can we work through this together? That relationship can grow stronger. I mean, it doesn't always happen. I think we need to acknowledge that as well. That's important to acknowledge that, yes, relationships do break down, but, you know, if we've still forgiven someone, we don't necessarily have to talk to them. If we can't feel like we've talked to them, or, you know, they've passed away, or there's, you know, there's no contact with them anymore, we can still forgive, we can still work through the unforgiveness and forgive them in our hearts and in our minds, and, you know, let things go. We can work through those things. So I know for some of you, you'll be watching this and you're already Christian. If you are, I would love for you to reflect on that this week and think, is there only unforgiveness or any relationships that I need to build back up? Do I need to go and chat with someone and say, oh look, I'm feeling this way about our relationship, can we try and resolve it? And can you hear my heart? And if you're not a Christian, it's great to have you. I hope that you've got something important out of this video today. But I would love for you to consider your relationship with God, and if that's something you want, whether you would love to experience it, you know, the lightness of being forgiven, and sort of working through the process of forgiving other people. So I hope, thanks for joining us. Check out the YouTube page, and we'd love to hear your comments and about what you think about this video. And if you want to get in touch with us, you can do that. We'd love to chat with you.